let's jump in. As I mentioned, oh yeah, this is brought to you by Vorus. That is me, my company. We help B2B SaaS companies build a repeatable sales process. So if you're hiring reps for the first time, if you have a couple of reps that are not performing all that well, you can go to the website and there's a couple of services that we offer. Just book an appointment and then I'll chat with you and see if there's a good fit. All right, but enough about me. Let's talk about the topic. Here's my promise to you. By the end of this class, you'll learn a bulletproof process for hiring top performing sales reps with real questions you can ask to uncover if someone is actually a good candidate. Like I was saying earlier, it can be really difficult to interview salespeople because they all seem awesome. Real quick background on me. Who am I? Well, I've worked with over 80 B2B software and service companies, helping them build a repeatable sales process. I've written three Amazon best-selling books. One is called Cold to Committed. It's on how to do cold outreach. The other is called the Sales Development Framework, which is about how to build and scale sales development teams. And then the third one is called 16 Steps to Repeatable Sales, which covers how to build, an entire repeatable sales process. I've also helped our clients sell over 100 million in software and services. About 30% of our clients is all of them have been venture backed. They've gone on to raise over 280 million since working with us. And I've personally trained over 1,000 salespeople. So I have a lot of context around the different parts of the sales motion, both from the SDR perspective all the way through customer success, account management, things like that. And here's the problem when it comes to hiring. If you hire the wrong people for your sales role, you'll waste time, money, and you're going to ultimately kill your culture. It's really, really brutal whenever I talk to somebody who has some salespeople and there's like one super negative salesperson and they just don't know what to do. And they're like, I have like one super disgruntled person. The other people seem okay, but they all talk to each other. And you end up creating this culture that's very negative, but it's also one where poor performance is tolerated. And that's probably the worst outcome of all of this. If you hire the wrong people, if you don't have a strong process, they become disgruntled or disheartened, one of those two. And then you create this culture where they're not performing all that well, but there's no consequences of not performing all that well because the leader doesn't know, like, hey, is this a problem with the rep? Is it a problem with our process, our product? What is it? And just creates this really bad environment. You want your sales team to be driving momentum and riding momentum as much as possible. So there's three components to hiring top performers that we're going to go through. The first is the ideal candidate profiler. We're going to go through and build out what the ideal candidate looks like. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Then there's the structured interview process. So how I actually go through interviewing SDRs and AEs. And then everyone's favorite, I'm going to give you some some interview questions. And why I said that, like everybody's favorite, is because everyone loves interview questions. It's good to have a couple good questions that you like. I just don't find them all that valuable. I find having a conversation with someone that's more my style, but there are questions that I like. So I'm going to walk you through that. But everyone always asks me about, what's a good interview question? It depends. But there is one interview question that I will say I absolutely love. And I'll share that with you at the end. It's like it is totally out there. You're gonna be like, holy wow, this is a crazy question. You won't find it on a blog post anywhere. But you will appreciate the question, or at least that's my promise to you. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering. The first part of this is the ideal candidate profiler. And I want to talk a little bit about this before we actually walk through it and why it's so important. So let me start with this. I don't care how data-driven you are as a sales organization, there is no way to outperform poor salespeople. And I want you to really hear me when I say that. Here's the reality. If you're hiring a salesperson for the first time, there's something I want you to expect. Your close rate as a founder, right? And actually, if you could type in what your role is, so I make sure I know who I'm talking to here. But even if you're a senior leader, or if you're somebody with a lot of experience, if you're hiring a salesperson for the first time, you should expect you as the founder to have a higher close rate than the rep. This is very, very common. And I want to set that expectation with you because if you hire a sales rep and if you feel like, hey, their close rate isn't as high as mine, you should know why. Okay, so yeah, Pete's a founder, Burke's a senior leader. Okay, cool. I was just double checking that real quick. Okay, I most of my audience is founders, so I speak to founders quite a bit, but this translates in either way. There's two reasons why generally your first sales rep is going to have a lower win rate than you. The first is, as a founder, you naturally speak with authority. You built a solution. You understand the challenge it solves intimately. And number two, you deeply understand the world of the buyer. This is critical. How is a rep that you hire for the first time joining your company supposed to compete with that? You see, sales performance has much less to do with fancy tactics or little closing lines. It's much more about how well the salesperson understands the world of the buyer and their ability to speak to that buyer as an equal. Critical. Like, if there's one thing you take away from this section, like, I really want you to hone that in your brain, like really burn it in there. Speak to that buyer like an equal. It creates this authority flywheel. You have a salesperson who can speak to the buyer with authority, which results in the buyer opening up more about their challenges, which results in the salesperson better understanding the world of the buyer, which gives them more authority. You see what I'm saying? And that flywheel is so important. The longer a salesperson is on that flywheel, the better they become. Which is why most founders will be better salespeople than the first sales reps they hire. Okay. There's a way to shortcut this, which is what we're about to walk through. You could shortcut this by hiring somebody with the right attributes. So too many founders, I mean, even senior leaders, managers, anyone in charge of hiring, too many hiring managers, I'll even say, they want this like amazing super closer rep. Like, there's so much pressure on finding that right rep. And like, oh, I just want this person to come in and close and they're going to be amazing. And they spend a lot of time fantasizing about that rep and way less time thinking deeply about the attributes of that rep. And that's what I'm going to be encouraging you to do today. They get a good feeling about them and they hire them. But when they're performing well, or excuse me, when the person they hire is not performing well, the founder ends up like on the calls themselves. Actually, let me know if you've ever had this happen before. Type in yes if you've like hired somebody, or you know somebody who've hired somebody with industry expertise, but then you or the person you knew ended up on the sales calls because they were struggling and they needed to like give them that kind of expertise. I'm curious how many people have run into this. Let me go to my chat here. Okay, yeah, co-founder, CEO, okay, more of that. There's a little delay in the stream, so I'm going to wait. But yeah, like Kayla says here, like, yes, she either her or someone she knows, Barbara. Exactly. This is very common, okay? Excuse me. You end up like really trying to provide that executive presence or that industry expertise to help them close more deals. There's one major problem with this. You hired somebody to eventually get yourself out of selling. And now you've provided and you've really become a crutch for the sales reps. And 8 months in, you're going to realize that they never learned to walk. I see this all of the time. You will be pulling your hair out because you're still burning the candles at both ends, never lightening the sales load. And you'll be left wondering, why do I have this salesperson if I am doing all the selling? Right? It's horrible. I've seen founders completely burnt out. It's like one day they're super excited. They're like, hey, I have this sales rep. They're going to be starting. They're going to do great. The next day they feel absolutely powerless to move their company forward. And if you stay in that space for long enough, I don't care how hardworking of a founder you are, eventually you will want to throw in the towel. So let's go over the ideal sales candidate profile. This is like character creation in a video game. Let me ask before I jump in, can y'all see this? Just say yes if you can see this, okay. Please remind me at the end. I will share all this with you, but you got to remind me. As you guys know, a lot of the repeats here, you have to remind me to share the links to this stuff because I forget. It's just a one-man show here. All right, cool. So let's walk through the ideal sales candidate profiler. The two main areas here, the categories we have, are skills and attributes. Okay. And this is where I want you to start thinking of what does good look like. So let's talk about the skills first. You can see the first thing I have there is sales motion, SMB, mid-market, enterprise. I don't care like how so much deal size is a good heuristic for this, but I don't care if it's like a specific like company size that they sold to, like maybe you do. Well, however you're defining SMB, mid-market, enterprise as a sales motion is important, okay? Because sometimes you'll sell, like for example, a service company might sell a $60,000 year offering to companies that have, or not even $60,000 a year, maybe it's a one-time offer, it's 60 grand. And they'll sell that to a company with 11 people in it. The sales motion will actually feel a lot more like SMB, maybe a little lower mid-market in terms of sales motion. It'll be a couple of sales calls. You close a deal. You're most likely just selling to the founder of that company, right? Other times, you're selling something like, for example, I worked with a client a while ago, which is wild. They were selling software to schools, and their ACV was like 4,200 or something low, and their sales cycle was 9 months. I don't even know how it worked, but it did. So anyway, what's the sales motion that the sales rep has experience selling? Okay, you pick one. If you sell to the enterprise, don't hire an SMB sales rep, obviously. Next, we have product type. What type of product did they sell? If you sell a marketing automation tool, you may want to look for somebody who sold a marketing automation tool. Personas they sold to. Do you sell to VPs of sales? Hire somebody who's sold to VPs of sales. This one I care a lot about. I'll explain a little bit of how you could wiggle on some of these, but man, that persona, like I care a lot about. If you can speak the world of the buyer, it's so critical. So what personas have they sold to? The verticals sold into. If you sell to healthcare, having somebody who sold into healthcare is really useful. Prospecting, inbound or outbound. So let's say you're hiring an SDR or an AE that does their own prospecting. Is there experience working inbound leads or outbound leads? It's a totally different rep, right? Sales tools. What sales tools are they familiar using? And other, that's a catch-all. If you have specific ones that you want, you can add them there. Now, how do you flex this a little bit? Look, not always you're going to be talking to a sales rep that checks every single box on the skills list, right? So you want to be, thoughtful of that. What I do is I have a couple of these that are very much non-negotiable. Like for example, I might not hire a sales rep that hasn't sold a similar selling motion as that I'm selling into, right? Product type I might care a little less about. Persona is usually a non-negotiable for me. Vertical is medium. It depends on the product or service being sold. If vertical is super important to you, that might be your non-negotiable. If you sell to a lot of different buyer personas, maybe you care a little less about the personas that they sold into. If I'm hiring an AE and I expect them to do outbound, I want to make sure that they have a lot of outbound experience, right? That's the idea. If I'm hiring an SDR, side note here for SDRs, I actually I don't like SDR experience. Okay, so that's just a note. Hopefully, if you have questions about that, type it in. I'll just say that as a statement. I rarely hire SDRs that have SDR experience. I have before, but I don't, that's not my default. I go for fresh out of college. Student athlete is my favorite. So I actually partner with a company. All they do is they partner with colleges and they work to hire student athletes for SDR positions or former student athletes for like AEs and stuff. And I'll connect you guys with them. But anyway, so that's the skill side. Then there's the attributes side as well. Attributes, how are they motivated? So this is a little small, it's career and money. Do you want somebody more career motivated, more money motivated? Adaptability. Oh, and by the way, why would you want that? Well, if you're an earlier stage startup company and you don't have that much money and you're trying to hire somebody that you think is going to be really driven and do an awesome job, you might want somebody earlier in their career who's really career motivated, right? Versus hiring somebody like with a family and their kids play soccer, I'm talking about myself here, where I care more about money, right? Adaptability. There's more stable environments versus adaptable, right? Like, is this person somebody that you give a process, they just execute it nonstop? Or do you need somebody a little more adaptable? Hey, we're going to be changing the process. We're going to be refining the process a lot. That's one of the attributes I'd be looking for. Level of experience. So I mentioned SDRs, I want junior. For AEs, I want more senior. Where do they fit here, right? And then network. Do you not care about the network at all, or is it a really important part? Some companies, it's really important. If it's not that network, if it's not that important, put not important. Side note, if your hypothesis is you're going to hire some sales rep with a big network, most likely that doesn't work out. Just so you know. And then at the bottom here, you see there's a candidate scoring section where, like, as you talk to a candidate, you score them on their skills fit. So across all those skills, how well do they fit? And then motivation, adaptability, experience, and network, which are the 4 attributes. And you score them based on their fit against those attributes. You can see the candidates' names all up there too. Okay, so I'll give you guys this at the end. Again, please don't let me forget. Like I said, one-man show, so you got to remind me. Pete, I see you here. I joined this because I'm looking to hire my first SDR. We'll talk a lot about SDR hiring too. If you're looking for, should I just introduce you guys to this person now? I'll grab this for you right now. Normally, I was going to wait to Q&A if people are hiring SDRs. I was going to share this, but this is, her name's Kelly. I work with her a lot. Here's a link to her calendar. If you want to schedule some time with her, she'll chat with you about hiring student athletes for SDR positions. You just let her know that that's what you wanted to talk about. They hire for AEs and other positions too, but they really focus on student athletes. That's my favorite for SDRs. They're a recruiting firm, so know that going into it. But if you need some support there, that's who I would recommend reaching out to. All right, I broke my rule. Normally I do that stuff in Q&A. All right, cool. Let's go to the structured interview process. Okay, how do you interview these people? I don't know if you have run a job ad anytime lately. It's chaos out there, huh? You get hundreds and thousands of applicants within a couple days now. It is flip. I remember, man, for so long it was a candidate market. I remember if there was a candidate on a screening call that did really well, I was instructing the person who did this screening call to like fast track them as quick as possible because they were getting scooped up so quickly. You gotta be quick on candidates. That's what it used to be. Now it's like unlimited applicants for every job posting we do. It's crazy, right? So how do you interview these people, and what's like a more scalable way of interviewing? So I'm gonna walk through the process that we like. Take what you like from here, get rid of what you don't, right? But this is what I'll share. Okay. It starts with the revenue being submitted. Oops, give me 1 second. My thing. Am I still here? Yeah, I am. Okay, cool. My computer glitched out. The resume gets submitted. Then they get an email screening test. This is an interesting one. When they submit their resume, they get an email saying, hey, thank you so much for applying. We're going to get back to you soon. P.S. If you reply to this email and change the subject line to your first and last name, that'll jump you on top of our radar because we get so many applicants. That's just a simple attention to detail test. I can tell you from experience, this cuts out more than half of the applicants. So choose to use that if you'd like to. I always do it because it really limits the amount of resumes I have to review. So when they email back with their first and last name as the subject line, then I review the resume, not before. So I'm not looking at 1,000 resumes. I guess I'm looking at 500 or 400. Okay, which is still a lot, but that's what usually you have someone doing it. And this is also why, like, our clients, like, we recommend using recruiters for this. We partner with the person I just introduced you to for this exact reason, because it just takes so much time. All right, cool. Next thing here. If they seem like a potential fit based on looking at their resume, you schedule a phone screening. So you shoot them an email to schedule that phone screening email. I have like messaging for all this too. Again, remind me at the end. I'll give you a link. I have all this stuff organized for you. Just don't let me forget. I have it. It's just I start doing Q&A and I forget. But okay, conduct the phone screen. Are they moving on? Yes. Now we're going to send them a written exercise. I do this so far, SDR AE, same process. Okay, just to be clear. I send them a written exercise. The written exercise I do, you can do whatever you want. I ask them, based on like what we do, I ask them to find 3 companies that they feel like would be a good fit for our solution, and just explain a little bit why they think it's a good fit. I just want to see, like, you know, are they sharp? Do they understand Do they understand what we do enough to be able to say like, hey, this landscaping company might be a good fit for them, right? And can they explain their reasoning? With like ChatGPT and stuff, no one should ever fail this. I mean, they still do, but and I don't care if they use AI, by the way, if that's one of your questions. Happy to talk more about that too. I'm very deep in the AI stuff. I want all people using AI. But okay, candidates replies. Did they do a good job? Yes or no? And then now we're going to start splitting based on position. Okay, AE and SDR. All right. So far, they've responded to our email screening test. We've reviewed the resume. We've done a phone screening. We've given them a written exercise. We have not done a formal interview yet. And the reason why is because generally, who does the more formal interviews? More of the executive level people. And I want to protect their time. And all of this stuff here fits really smoothly within the process. What I'm about to show you is a little bit, I guess, pushback on this sometimes. For AEs, I like to do a mock presentation, a mock sales call before a formal interview. I know it's wild that I do it this way, or some people think it is. I do this for a bunch of reasons. So the first thing I'm going to mention, though, first is the mock presentation. They are selling something they know how to sell. That's key. And the person who does the phone screen explains that to them. They sell something that they know how to sell. And I want to see them at their best, where they're comfortable, right? I do this for a bunch of reasons. One, they don't know all the people who will be interviewing them yet, so they didn't already build a rapport with them and then go into the selling. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I want to see the skills of this rep in isolation before asking interview questions. I just want to see, like, are they really good? And the other thing too is you can also somewhat protect time on this as well. So you have someone else watch the mock presentation and see how they do. That's not always the case. Sometimes like the VP of sales or the founder will be on this, but that's another reason, especially for more for larger sales orgs. SDR skip. And this is like, so some people give me pushback on this too. I don't have SDRs do a mock cold call. I just haven't found it all that useful. Like, I will train them on how to do a cold call. That's totally fine. Especially like people who don't have experience cold calling. They're often like, oh, what, they just sound weird to me, and they don't like have a script. It's just, why are we doing a mock cold call? I don't know. I haven't gotten a lot of value from it, so I don't do it. This is just from my experience. I've interviewed an uncountable amount of SDRs, and I used to do it early in my career. Nah, I just don't anymore. Feel free to add that if you want, if you're passionate about doing a mock cold call. I just don't do it. Again, I hire SDRs like right out of college, no experience, so I just haven't found it very useful. Okay, so then we send this email to schedule the main interview. We conduct that main interview. We have something called Spark. We're not going through that today. Any sort of framework for evaluation, I recommend that you use. So I shared with you the ideal sales rep candidate profiler just before this, where you have the attributes and the skills. You're really going to be using that instead of the Spark. Spark is really deep and detailed. Happy to go over it at some point. It's just, it was going to take too long, and I didn't want to bore you guys with this when I think the attributes and the skills are a really good starting point. Then so that's after the main interview, and you might do multiple of those, by the way. You might have interviews with multiple people. So it says conduct main interview. It really should be plural, however many that you need to do. Everybody evaluates how they feel they are as a fit. Ask for references, conduct reference checks. Yes, I still conduct reference checks. Negotiate sometimes, and then hire the person, then onboard the person. That's the whole process that we follow. Oh, shoot, my screen share stopped. Oh, no. I should have looked at the chat earlier. I'm sorry. Give me a second here. Oh, no, that stinks. Well, I'm going to show you this whole thing now. That's what I walked through. Thank you. Okay, cool. So I'll just quickly, let me hover over here. Email screening test, screenshot this. It'll also be what I give you at the end. Review resume, send phone scheduling email, conduct phone screen, send a written exercise, they complete it, mock presentation, schedule the main interview. Spark is that framework that we like to use. I think I have an article on it I can send you to. Ask for references, conduct reference checks, negotiate, hire, onboard. That's my my big recap. I'm so sorry about that. I'm just with once, I don't know. I just didn't look at the chat. That was my fault. On me, not you, but there you go. Hopefully it's everything you hoped it was and more. Okay, cool. So that's what that looks like here. Again, as you have questions, please type them in. I'll look at the chat at the end and, try not to miss that the screen share stopped on that one. Okay, cool. Interview questions. This is what I got for you. I'm going to go through some interview questions that I like. All interview questions are pretty good. I was kind of like joking about them earlier in our conversation, but really all interview questions are good, which is why I don't go over them very, very often. Like people always want to hear my interview questions. I just think they're all fine. Just ask all of them, have a conversation with the person. But there is one that I'm very passionate about that I'll show you at the end of this list. But here are some examples. These are ones that you can use. I would screenshot these. I think I have them in the post, but just in case. Okay, for an AE, how much time do you spend cultivating customer relationships versus hunting for new clients? What's the philosophy behind that breakdown? Especially if you have some kind of post-sale expectation from the rep, like they maintain a relationship with their clients. Maybe you sell more of like an enterprise mid-market things that you want to make sure that they are good at keeping that kind of relationship. What do you think our companies or sales organization could do better? This is a hard question to answer, by the way. So this is not one that I would ask if it was more of a junior position, but especially for folks that have gone through a couple of steps, maybe they've watched a demo of how you guys sell, something like that. Tell me about something interesting you have learned recently. This is one I ask often. I will say I do ask this one often. I like interesting people. I think interesting people make very good salespeople. So I want to know what they're interested in. Something they've learned recently. A lot of times, like they're talking to me about ancient Rome, which is like super fun for me, or like they're interested in like Magic the Gathering, and that's super cool too. Like I'm a hardcore nerd, by the way. Or like they love poker. Like I also like poker. Like, it just comes up with like a really good conversation. And I like people who nerd out about stuff. I find that they make really good salespeople. Curiosity is super important for me. That's like one of the most important traits I look for SDRs and AEs. And this is a nice question for both SDRs and AEs to help you kind of learn more about that. Have you ever had a losing streak? How did you turn it around? Kind of understand the mindset. It also gets them comfortable talking about times that were challenging. A lot of times in interviews, they're trying not to tell you like, hey, I struggled with X, Y, or Z, right? So that's really helpful to hear. Explains the steps you take from beginning of the sales process to the end. This is to understand like how well do they follow a process. I find the best salespeople, they have a process they like to follow. Doesn't mean that they're going to be able to do whatever they want when you hire them, right? But they're process oriented and they have a process. They know why their process is good. I like to hire people like that. All right, you ready for the big question? This is my favorite question to ask. So let me just give you a little background before I change the slide, okay? I like to be the last person in an interview, and as a sign of dominance. No, just liking so I can ask this question, to be honest. Generally, I have two people interview them before me, okay? Here's a question I ask them. It's the first question I ask them in their final interview with me. You have spoken to person A and person B. I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think they will be most excited about with you as a candidate? And what do you think their biggest concern will be? So crazy question. It's very, it forces them to be really introspective. Gosh, yeah, I spoke to person A, I spoke to person B. What are they going to be most excited about? And what is their biggest concern going to be? They got to navigate between two people, those conversations, how they felt they were perceived in those conversations, what things came up, and they got to express positives and a constructive one. That's a lot to ask them to do. So them navigating that tells me so much about how they think and honestly how they act in a lot of ways. Sometimes they'll skip the positive. They'll only tell me the negative. Right now, there's no like real, unless it's a terrible answer, there's no real wrong answer to this question. It just helps me calibrate to what type of person that I'm talking to. And if they do forget to answer part of it, I'll ask them, oh, okay, well, what about negative? What do you think what do you think that their biggest concern will be? That's how I phrase it. Who do you think they'll be, their biggest concern will be? Anyway, hard question to answer. I expect a lot of thought here. Salespeople are so good at talking, right? Like we're really chatty. We're good on our feet. This question just rips them out of their element. They have to go, oh, geez, and they really have to think it through. In fact, if they don't think it through and just rattle off an answer to that, that's, if there's any red flag, that's kind of a red flag to me. This requires real thought, and I want to hear that thought. All right, why does this all work? And then we're going to transition to Q&A here. Well, it removes feelings from the process. Candidates can't hide weaknesses, and you're going to get multiple options. That's why I do it this way. I don't want an individual person's feeling, how I felt about a candidate, to be the driver of if that candidate's going to make it through or not. It's always a driver, right? I just don't want it to be the primary one. That's why I do this ideal candidate profiler, and we review the candidates against that set of criteria. Candidates can't hide weaknesses. The better questions you ask, the better you will understand that person's world and how they think and what their strengths and their weaknesses are. And when I say the better questions, I don't mean like just the basic questions, like I walked you through a couple of them. All those questions are fine. But do you prod? Do you dive a little bit deeper with them? Oh, tell me more about that. Or what do you mean by this? Like, I want you to have conversations with these candidates. And then you get multiple options. Because it's a structured process, you can compare people against each other, and how we have the attributes and the skills and how you're scoring people, you can see them all side by side. You have multiple options. You can make the best pick. All right. Before we go into Q&A, if you want to check out one of our future classes, we're doing a bit. Actually, this is an important one. I'm doing one on cold calling in 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, 2 weeks. You are going to want to be on that one. I'm going over like everything I know about cold calling. We're going to go over scripts. We're going to go over philosophy, theory. It's going to be like the most detailed cold calling live class I've ever done. I'm very excited about it. Your mind's going to be blown. You're going to go, I didn't even know cold calling was this big of a deal. The answer is yes. All right. So let's go to Q&A. I will grab 2 things here. Okay, so the first thing, I saw some questions come through, which is great. The first thing I'll say is, I'll help. Let's do, if you are hiring an SDR or AE and you want to hire people that have a college athletics background, you can talk to Kelly from Hire Athletes. And what I'll do, I already sent her thing here, but like, I don't know, if anybody here is hiring, you should go and talk to them. Anybody who books a meeting with Kelly, I'll give you, I have something called the Sales Effectiveness Bundle. It comes with a whole bunch of resources on how to be data-driven with your sales process. So it has like SDR tracking sheets, has a sales team calculator, so you can calculate what your sales team needs to look like to hit certain revenue targets, a bunch of stuff like that. I'll give you the AE Fundamentals course, which is a 42-lesson course on how to sell both software and services. And then the SDR Fundamental, which is like a 41-lesson course on how to cold call, cold email, etc. So I'll give you a whole bunch of stuff if you book with Kelly. They're awesome. We've been partnering with them for a long time. And feel free to book a meeting with her. You'll love it. And I'll send her a bunch of stuff to give you if you book a meeting. She'll be very happy with that. Okay. And then the other thing before we answer questions is, and for those of you who've been around the block, you know what I'm about to do, the survey. Woo, surveys. Oh, geez, give me a second. My copy and pasting did poor. Did I paste? Oh, yeah, I did paste it there. Okay, cool. Give me a second. We're copy paste like crazy. Everyone's going to leave and no one's question is going to get answered, and everyone will be heartbroken, especially me. All right, cool. Let me post this here real quick. Okay, and then let me grab the survey. So last thing I'm going to say here, this is a big favor. If you don't, not even if you don't mind, can you just please do my survey? It really helps me understand, like, what did you think of the live class? Would you attend this again? Are there any topics you would like covered? This isn't a goofy sales thing. I'm not going to bombard you and try to get you to book a meeting with me. But what it does do is it gives me a lot of insight on this class. So if you could please fill out the survey, it helps me a ton. All righty. Let me scroll up. I saw a question early on. Okay, cool. This is from Talat. Hopefully I said that, Talat. How can I make sure to transfer sales skills from one person to another? There's 2 ways to do this. One is you can really document what that person's doing and you build it into a script or a process, or two, you have that person teach the other person. I do both. Okay, spoiler alert. So what I'll do is I'll look at the data and I'll say, oh, rep A is really great in this metric. Rep B struggles in this metric. Rep A, what do you do? Document that. Hey, can you teach this to everybody to try to, rise the tides? Okay, another person had that question. If there's a follow-up on that, let me know, but that's how I do it. Why not SDRs? Can you elaborate? I'm assuming this was back when I was talking about how I don't hire SDRs that have experience. Burke, if that's wrong, comment. I'll get to it. What you actually meant. So the SDR role is very hard. The vast majority of SDR organizations are run really poorly. They're either run really poorly or like the product market fit isn't fully there. There's a lot of variables. And because of that, SDRs that have experience pick up a lot of bad habits. Those habits are incredibly hard to break. And if you're in an environment where it was like kind of poorly led, the SDRs start like forming strong opinions about stuff because they had such a negative experience at that place. And then they bring those opinions to kind of this new sales org, and those opinions aren't always right. They're usually wrong, actually. And like I've even, just to explain how crazy this is, I had a client, this was probably like a year and a half ago. One of the SDRs on their team was like giving me a bunch of pushback on like parts of the SDR process. And look, I love open debate. If people want to talk to me about stuff and like come up with opinions and whatever, more than open, for that kind of stuff. And I encourage it. This was like totally different. This was like straight up debating me. And I didn't say this to him. I navigated it pretty professionally, but in my head, I'm like, dude, I've been doing this stuff since you were a kid. You were in elementary school when I picked up a phone for the first time to call a stranger and ask if they wanted to talk to me more. Like, this is all, my whole career has been this. I've lived this world. I've written 2 books just on the sales development function. At a certain point, it's like, that friction isn't necessary. Just listen to what I'm telling you to do. And if it doesn't work, fine. Like, let's talk and fix something afterwards. But to give me so much friction on the front end, just like they get locked into things sometimes. So I don't love that. The other thing, though, too, is actually the inverse of this, which is the people who are really new to their career are super motivated. They're coachable, especially the student athletes thing. That's why I recommend Kelly. The student athlete thing is such a hack because they're really like coachable and they're driven and they want to make something work. And a lot of them, like, all they knew was the athletics. So they go into a sales role where it's like pretty similar, where, you're working really hard, you track your performance. It should translate so nicely. So I just find better performance out of those people. Does not mean that somebody who has SDR experience can't be good. In fact, I've hired plenty of SDRs with experience. I've broken that rule quite a bit. It's just, I don't prefer it. All right. What about an assessment tool? Have you had success with them? If so, which one is the best for hiring a salesperson? Funny thing about assessment tools. So yes, I've experimented with them. I don't love using them, just to be honest. I think most of the like personality testing is kind of pseudoscience. I just, and look, this could just be a block for me. I just find it weird. I wouldn't want to do a personality test to try and get a job. Also, like, I don't know. I don't like them. That's all I'll say. I just don't like them. And this is totally, you can push back and say this is a silly opinion, but I've used them before. I just find them weird. I also don't find them all that helpful. Like, this person is driven and it's just not all that interesting to me. So I have done one too. And maybe this is why I have a negative view of it. And I did, what was it called? I don't know. It was a sales one. And we were going to partner with this company. This is early. This is like 4.5 years ago, when right after I started my company. I started my company 5 years ago. And we were going to partner with one, and we had this like whole plan. And as part of the partnership, we all did the thing, and he saved mine for last, the sales rep or the partner manager. And he goes, "All right, Kyle, well, I saved yours for last year, but I just want to say, like, are you okay with me sharing this? Because there was some, not good stuff." Well, yeah, of course. How bad could it be? And I had, for the first time he had ever seen this, 2 red flags. And the red flag was like a huge deal in their thing. Like, their whole thing was like, hey, we don't really shout out that this is bad with a couple of exceptions. We're generally just saying like, hey, know this about the candidate. So when they hire, you can like communicate in a way that's effective for them or lead them in a way that's effective. I got 2 red flags. One was approval seeking. Okay. Guilty as charged. I did stand-up comedy for 5 years, right? So yeah, I'll take that. And what was the other one? Oh, the other one was nuts, which I strongly disagreed with. And anybody who's worked with me would strongly disagree with this too. Taking credit for other people's stuff. Like I had some personality trait that could lead me to take credit for other people's stuff. That's wild. The opposite is true. I do the thing and let the other person take credit. And anyone who's worked with me on anything knows like I'm big on giving everyone else credit. Like I try to take as little credit as possible. So anyway, that was my 2 red flags, and I was like, oh, okay, great. But there was one good thing. They had 0 to 100 scale for all of this stuff, and I got 100 out of 100 for sales management. I was like, hey, he had never seen that either. So I guess there was something good I was doing. All righty. My team can't make it to the cold calling class in 2 weeks. We have all day product demo schedule. Any chance you can record that one? Kayla, we're not recording it. We're not recording it. If you email me, here I am. This is the need for approval. For some reason, Kayla, I feel like I need your approval. If you email me, I'll try to get you a recording, but no guarantees. I can't guarantee it because we're not recording that one specifically. And I post some of the recordings afterwards. Like this one will probably be posted on the website. You can go and watch them there. You can also check there and see. We chose not to record this one. If enough people bug us about it, maybe we'll put it on there, but we chose not to. Okay. What if you find the perfect hire, but they want 10K more than you're budgeted? Is that a deal breaker? I mean, that's really depends on you, Lauren. Generally, no, but like the word perfect is doing a lot of heavy lifting in your question. If they are perfect, I'll pay them an extra 10K. Are you crazy? Absolutely. But that's less than an extra grand a month, right? Like just think of it from a business perspective. It's like, I'll spend an extra grand a month for somebody who's really, really great. After, you look at it this way, like after benefits and stuff, add 20%, that actually is $1,000 a month. I'll do that. But you also need to be the people who hold them accountable. And if it's not working out 3 months in, you got to let the person go. Right. And then you're really only 3K over what you would have paid otherwise. So I absolutely do not, I do not let that stop me. 10K, not a big deal. I pay people too. Side note, I pay people. I want people to make a lot of money. All right. Would you hire an AE for an SDR role if they are looking to change industries? For example, they want to get into tech sales. This is a very good question, Lauren, and it so depends on the person. What's the best way for me to explain to you how I would distinguish between the two? Okay, so generally, I don't love it. If they have a lot of outbound experience, that's a move where I'm like, okay, I'm more likely to. If it's well, wait a minute. You said hire an AE for an SDR. So I'm assuming they were an AE before and they're trying to just change industry. Okay. Side note on this is I will absolutely hire somebody from different jobs. Like I love hiring teachers. I've hired plenty of teachers because they make nothing. As an SDR, they make the same as they did as a teacher. And then AE, they're making way more. Teachers I love. So I've hired from other industries, but AE specifically for, trying to switch industries, I don't love unless they have a lot of outbound experience. If the sale is similar to your sale, maybe that's okay too. I'm more skeptical of it. And I'm kind of backing into it here. Like I kind of just use my intuition and let that guide me. I just don't want to hire a poor performer who wants to change industries because, like if you were a top performer as an AE in a different industry and you're switching industries, why wouldn't you just try to be an AE there? Right? Like I'd need to unpack that with them to better understand it. Yes, Kayla reminded me. See, Kayla, you're the best. This is why I wanted your approval. Okay. I'm going to give you guys all the resources we covered today. Is this the right? Yep, here we go. I have one blog post that has everything, including like all the scripts and stuff. So I'll send you that so you have all of that. And then let me grab the sales candidate, ideal sales candidate profiler. Maybe I need a better name for that, but here that is too. We covered this today, so let me throw that in the chat, and then I'll get to the next question. Okay. In your experience, do you find, okay, right here, Barbara. Thank you, Kayla. I appreciate the reminder. Okay. In your experience, do you find quality reps at all levels on a commission-only basis? Is the hiring process the same? I want to just say no to the question. Let me read this. Do you find quality reps at all levels on a commission-only basis? It's more like, can you find? Can you find? Maybe. But generally, the reason why they're willing to work commission only is because they can't get a job with a base salary. I do not like commission only. Does not mean it doesn't work for certain people. It absolutely has. You can find folks that are just like, I don't know. You can find folks like they dropped out of college, no one will hire them, which is freaking ridiculous, but it is what it is. Like, people care about the degree sometimes. You're getting less of that now. And this is coming from somebody who dropped out of college to do stand-up comedy. Like, I think having a college degree isn't necessarily the prerequisite to having an SDR job, right? It wasn't for me, but it was tough. I had to get them to overlook it. I had to get them to overlook that I didn't have a degree. So it was a little bit harder. And I worked my ass off when I got there. So I'm not saying you can't find it. It's just hard. Because like I said, there's a reason why they have a job where they don't have a base salary. So I don't love commission only. The hiring process is totally different. I don't know a lot about the hiring process. But it needs to be very skills oriented. So that's probably where I'm doing interviews and stuff. I'm not an expert of hiring commission only people. I don't like it. I also just as a more of a moral thing. It's not more morals. It isn't really what it is. It's more like, I just want to pay people money. If you're going to work for me, you're going to work hard. I want to pay you to do that work. And I don't love how commission only people, I don't love how people who have commission only teams talk about their commission only people. I don't love it. It just feels pretty disrespectful to me a lot of the times when I talk to them. If they don't work, it's like all the rep. It's like the rep. Like if they don't work out, they're not good enough, get a new person, the rep. It's like, well, what about you, dude? Now, the people who actually maybe figure out how to make it work at scale really well, they care much more about the reps. A lot of the, pest control companies do this, and they do a lot of trainings and stuff. I don't know. I don't want to speak totally out of turn here. I have had a decent amount of interaction with commission only teams, and I just don't love the dynamic there. So that's what I'll say. I went a little more detail than I was hoping for. Pete, where are you based out of, by the way? I just love seeing a fellow Greek on these calls. How would you modify/qualify the skills and attributes you ran through for an SDR hire if you chose candidates fresh from college? Yeah, good question. So obviously the skills things, a lot of that you're just not doing. The attribute side, it's going to be more junior. You want somebody more career motivated typically. Obviously not going to have any network. You don't care about that. So do that on the basis, but there is a little bit of a trick here. So what I'll say about hiring people right out of college is I'm looking for somebody where if I talk to them, I'm like, actually, here's the best way to explain it. Let's say I'm meeting up with a buddy of mine and their son's graduating college soon. I sit down and have a conversation with their son or their daughter. And I go, wow, that's a really impressive kid. That's the experience I want to have when I interview somebody right out of college. So I love the student athlete thing. I will say if they worked through college, I like that too. If they had a really demanding extracurricular, like maybe they played trombone or something at a competitive level, I like that too. And then you're really figuring out all the regular intangibles, do they have grit, all that stuff that you can look at any blog post and see that. But a big one for me is curiosity. Are they naturally curious and can they handle a conversation without it being awkward and weird? Oh, cool. Your family's from Cyprus. That's awesome. My family's from Chios, which is far from Cyprus, but that's awesome. Cool. I didn't share the slides. So let me grab the slides for you LinkedIn people. Some people join us on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah, I'll share that right now. I'll give you guys another, 30 seconds here to ask questions if I don't see another question before I after I've shared these links, then I'll bail. So let me share this here. So there's the first one, and then the second one is going to be. Okay, great. All right, I'm going to go back to the chat here in a minute. All right, I don't see any other questions. So, hey, I really appreciate you all joining. This was a lot of fun. There's a lot you could be doing on a Thursday. You've chose to spend time with me. For that, I'm eternally grateful. If you have any questions at all, never hesitate to reach out. In 2 weeks, we have the cold calling class. That's going to be incredible. Need anything, just let me know. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Bye.